All right. Well, today we want to welcome you all to the Native Broadcast Network. We have a wonderful guest we are excited to bring on. We hope you heard that wonderful bio that we gave you. Her name is Miss Sandie Gascon. She is a wonderful author. She is also a person who, like many, has gone through a lot in life. And life, it gets hard once in a while for all of us, but as we go through life, we got to get inspired. And Sandie has written some things that are not only inspiring, but we want to get to learn a little bit more of who Sandie Gascon is, what brought her to this book, and what got her to start on helping others to become inspired. Because that's what we want to help you today is listen to the inspiration of Miss Sandie Gascon. Welcome to the show, Sandie.
Thank you for having me on, Enoch. I'm really happy to be here. Inspiration is so powerful and is what we all really need to focus on because, like you said, we're all going through hard times. And if we really get centered in our faith and turn to that connection, that oneness, and really see things as lessons and a way of spiritual growth instead of hard times, amazing things can come out of whatever we're going through.
And that's what I like to hear, because amazing things, just from reading this book in a short period of time, there's a lot of things that I've come to understand that this book is going to help us understand. But before we go into this book, Sandie, let's get people to learn a little bit about you, who you are,
Yeah.
where you're from, and a little bit about your life story, because some of the things that you've gone through is the reason why you've come to write the book that you have. So let's learn a little bit more about you, Sandie. Go ahead. Let's tell the audience.
Yeah. So Heal Yourself definitely is from the culmination of my life. I've definitely went through a lot. I grew up in Northern Ontario. Right now I am in Florida as we're speaking. But I started out having a lot of health issues from age 7. There was definitely a lot of emotional stress and trauma in my life from a young age, but started having migraines at age 7. And from there, at about 13, I started to suffer from insomnia. I started to cycle from manic depressive episodes, and that continued through my teens, through high school. And when I was 19, I was actually diagnosed with bipolar depression, a lot of hereditary mental health issues on my mother's side. And I at that time really wanted to go to school to become a doctor to find a cure for migraines. I was put on an antidepressant at that time, which really did dull the migraines, but it also dulled me. I didn't have very much emotions. I really lost connection to the emotion. It was definitely better at the time than what I was going through, but there were a lot of holistic and natural answers that I needed to find. From there, I started to have a lot of problems with the medication that I was on, and I recognized that they were very hard to get off of. And it really changed my life path because I knew that I didn't want to ever put somebody through that. Not being able to get a medication. So I switched from wanting to become a doctor. I ended up, I didn't know anything about natural health back then. There wasn't a lot of as much promotion towards it. And from there, I went and started to study to become a massage therapist. Right before I was finished graduating, I ended up developing food poisoning. I lost a lot of weight, got very sick, and then my health really just started to spiral. Within the next year, I started to have heart issues and issues with my joints, a lot of pain, a lot of fatigue. And it was 1 year after that food poisoning diagnosis that I was diagnosed with lupus. And then things started to happen where I met a lady who said, stay away from the medications, go to a natural route. And though I knew nothing about it, that really resonated with me. And so I started to search online. There was definitely a lot less than what there is today. And I found going raw vegan. And there was a woman who healed from lupus that way. So I started to pursue it, but it wasn't sustainable for me. And I ended up getting worse. I was very focused on diet. Then I started to not be able to work anymore. So I ended up having to move home with my parents, and I went into a really dark place for the next year, just very depressed, really thinking that this was going to be my life. Doctors had told me I wouldn't live very long with medication, but I didn't want to go the medication route. And so I became very depressed. I found that what was available to me through the government with psychologists and psychiatrists wasn't helping. I was having a lot of issues with sense, so I couldn't really go in public because I would get a migraine. And from there, luckily enough, I started listening to some podcasts again, and I found one that really inspired me, and it made a big shift where I got determined to get out of focusing on my illness and really being in a victim state where everything was happening to me. And I started to find some power and got determined that I would figure it out. And I took my knowledge from my biomedicine degree, and I started to really look into researching the way the body worked and how I can really affect it with herbs and supplements. And that's when things started to shift, and I was able to find amino acid therapy, and I rebalanced my brain. I got off the medication. I started to work on my liver and my detox pathways and my gut. I was able to get my autoimmune antibodies down. So I technically would have been in remission, because we can't say the word cure out there in the natural world. And I started to feel really good. But at the time, I was still trying things. I was trying everything. And I had really poor skin at the time. I had cystic acne all over my face and my back. And I started to experiment with trying to find ways naturally to get rid of that. And I ended up developing something called interstitial cystitis, which is a very painful bladder condition. And it took me about a year of trial and error before I said, okay, I need to start running some labs. Science definitely can be used in a negative sense in a lot of ways in our life right now, but there is ways that we can use it to help heal our bodies. So I went and took a functional diagnostic nutrition course, got myself certified so I could run some labs and really start using the science to my advantage and find out what was going on. And I was able to really heal my bladder to about 90%. And I started growing my business, motivated to heal. I started working with clients, and I had really great success with it. But then I was working with a business coach, and my time had come to an end, and I moved to Jack Canfield, and I started doing some seminars with him and had some amazing breakthroughs where I realized that a lot of the trauma from my childhood was contributing and fueling this bladder issue that I was having. And when I cleared the trauma, it went away. And I started incorporating that healing into my program because it's such a powerful part. It's not just about taking herbs and supplements, which play a big role. We definitely want to do that, but we have to look at us as a complete holistic being. We have to look at what's going on spiritually, what's going on in our lifestyle, the trauma we've experienced, the pain that we're carrying from our past. We have to incorporate that into our healing journey. And so all of the knowledge that I have gained working with people over the past 5 years has really accumulated into my book, Heal Yourself. And from there, I'm now starting to move to creating a practitioner program where I teach people how to do what I do, how to analyze tests, and how to help people heal when that's their passion and be able to work from home and create a business. So I'm just super passionate about all these things that are happening, and it's just one leading to another. And it's from exactly what you talked about in the beginning, being inspired, being in spirit, and moving through what's presented to us so that we are really connecting with where we're supposed to be on our path instead of being defined by what's happening to us.
And that's, I mean, that's an inspiring story, because when you're listening to everything you've said, the things that you go through, that it's relatable. I mean, who else in life, and many of us, we can think everybody in the world, there's something that we're all going through. And when you talk about how you're using the holistic way, let's kind of explain to those who might not understand, what does holistic therapy and this, what does that mean to those who are listening that might not have heard that before?
Yeah, so the term holistic is definitely going to have a lot of different meanings towards different practitioners. For me, we're working on the body, we're working on the mind, and we're working on the spirit. So when we're working on the body, we're running functional lab work, that's blood work, genetics, hormone testing. We're looking to see what's going on with the body so that we can add in supplements and herbs to support the body. But then we're also looking at our mind. What's going on with our thought patterns? What's happening in our life? What are some of the traumas that we've experienced? What resentment, anger, any of those things that we're holding on to that are really preventing us from healing. And then let's look at the spiritual journey. And that goes with whatever faith we believe in. Let's turn inwards and really start to fuel that and focus on our passion and our purpose and why we're here versus really staying focused on our symptoms and what's going wrong.
And that's some of the things too that I appreciate reading in this book, and we're going to kind of segue a little bit into this because some of the book I've been reading, there's a lot of powerful reading. And the first part, and to help people who want to read this book, the first part, it's kind of scientific in some of that, and it's kind of hard to understand and read. But before that challenges some to not want to read that, what are some of these things to make it easier for those who do read this book? Because I was reading through some of that and I was like, wow, I'm going to have to get my science book out.
Yeah, I definitely tried to make it as easy to understand. And it's why right at the beginning of the book, it says how to read this book. So if you're not interested in the science, then definitely hire a practitioner who can do that for you. So I had so many clients reach out to me saying, you need to include the science in it because there are people who love that and they want to learn and they want to be fueled for it. But if that's not you, that's totally okay too. We really want to focus on what we're passionate about. And those people can just skim through it, take in what they can, or skip over it and head over to part 2 and part 3, which is really focused on the mindset and the spiritual growth. And then the appendix is really heavy science-based. And it's put there for those people who love that. They want to learn about the genes. They want to learn about how to analyze the tests. So it's got something in there for everyone. And if all you read is part 2 and part 3, you're going to get so much out of it. There's going to be so much to fuel your growth. And if you love the science stuff or you're just starting to get into it, then part 1 will be for you. And if you love it, then the appendix is definitely going to be where you're going to find a lot of fun stuff.
I do agree with that. And let's kind of peruse part 1 a little bit, because that's talking a little bit about the body. The body is a very important part. And without the body, we can't function any of our parts that are functioning wrong. But you break it down into different things. Like I say, it's kind of a little bit scientific, but you bring about the tests. These tests are important. Kind of break down what the oat test and some of these tests that people can get these ran by their own doctors. Is that correct?
So you're not going to find a lot of doctors who will order them. If you found a functional medicine doctor, yes, they will order a naturopath, anybody who's practicing functional nutrition, and then some health coaches will be versed in some of these tests. It's going to be really dependent on the practitioner. So for me, the organic acids test is really great because it's showing us bacteria, yeast, and mold markers. It's showing us some nutrient markers. It's showing us how we break down our neurotransmitters, which really is important when we're looking at our genetics. And that really gets us to customize the support our brain needs. So we can biohack our brain to give ourselves more focus, more energy, more drive, or we can shift it to a more calming, peaceful relaxation state. And that's, really amazing that we have this ability in these tools. We don't need to be dependent on medication to numb us or different things that we use in our lifestyle, like alcohol and food to numb us, when we're able to really find balance in our brain and optimize it and feel good, feel amazing. When I was on medication, I felt like a zombie. And when I got off the medication and balanced my brain, I feel fueled, I feel focused, I'm able to, achieve the things that I want to do and feel my emotions at the same time without them completely overwhelming me and driving me into either anxiety or depression or anger. It just is a balance, but still being able to feel.
That's
So
some of the things. That's amazing stuff that we're hearing, because I reading some of the books. I'm going to give some quotes from some of your books that you read, that you do not suffer. Only the person you imagine yourself can suffer. The observer is beyond the state of changing, and that's part of some of the body that you go into. And the reason why I like this part of the book, even though it's scientific, you're really breaking it down to some of these things, because another part it says, as you're talking about the medication, I myself have been on medication, Paxil, PTSD medication, things like that. So, and one of the things you says in the book, it quotes, it's easier to take a pill than change one habits in the entire lifestyle.
definitely.
And some of the things in that book, you talk about the body's bank account. I would really love that. Let's talk about that. Me as a business person, I love talking about banks. You know, there's
Yes.
withdrawals you make, and you give me some deposits, and those deposits can grow. But how do you break that down? I love how you, and I want to hear you tell this, because the bank, we got to look at our body as a bank account, correct?
Yeah, definitely. And we're all born with a certain reserve or an amount in our bank, depending on a lot of factors: genetics, how healthy our mother was, the nutrients she was eating, the diet she was eating. And so we're born with this reserve. And most of us, we come out and immediately there's withdrawals being made, right? Where a lot of us are not breastfed, or if we are, our mom's not eating the most healthy diet. We're not getting the nutrients that we need at the level that we used to. And there's vaccines, there's emotional stress. Our culture has really changed with even how we raise our children. The level of if we go back a couple hundred years ago, kids were always with their parents or their immediate family for a much longer time, and now we're sending them off right away, which is very hard on the body when we look at it from an attachment perspective. Then the food that we're eating, and then as we get older, we start to, perhaps we're drinking a lot, or we're taking different medications or drugs. There's antibiotic use. So there's really withdrawal after withdrawal happening to our body. And most of us living a standard American diet, and we're not putting things back in, right? We're not making any deposits.
That's
so right. The deposits are going to be, doing things that you love. The deposits are going to be supplements. The deposits are going to be really good quality whole foods. These are things that we can make deposits on. But in order to build our bank account, you have to stop the withdrawals. Or, if you just keep spending and spending and spending, you're going to go into debt, and eventually you're going to go bankrupt. And that's where we see these health issues happen. And we've been conditioned through the news, through society, that there's a pill for everything that ails you. And we've also been taught that, hey, if you're feeling depressed or anxious, there's something wrong with you. You have a disease. Versus, hey, there might be some stuff in your life that you need to address. There might be a dysfunctional relationship. There might be a job that is sucking the life out of you. But we've been conditioned to have these beliefs that we need to go to work and we need to make money, and it doesn't matter whether you like it or not. This is what you have to do. You've got to work hard to retire. So there's all these limiting beliefs that we have, and we're really crushing our spirit. And that is a big withdrawal. So we want to start really turning that around, start making the deposits, cutting the withdrawals, reducing our chemicals, reducing the toxins that we're putting into our body, reducing our emotional stress, and then focus on making those deposits.
And those are very important. I appreciate the passion and the love, because we do have to be making those deposits back in. We're always giving, but we're not putting back in there. And you also talk about the 4 R's.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about those 4 R's?
Yeah, definitely. So that's really the foundation of my protocol. Is we're rebuilding the body, we're rebalancing the body, we're repairing the detox pathways, and we're removing stress. So when we rebuild and rebalance, that's when we run those labs, the organic acids, a full blood panel, we run a Dutch test, we run our genetics, and we see, okay, this is what our body needs to heal. So we rebuild it, rebalance it, and we also see what our detox pathways are doing so that we can repair them. And after, we're also wanting to remove the stress. So that's removing the toxins, removing pathogens, removing heavy metals, and really removing a lot of our emotional stress. And that's done through mindset work and turning inwards and connecting more to passion and purpose.
So there's another point too that you make after that. It's about our body listening. Can you go into elaborate what that means is our body's listening? What is it listening to?
Well, it's more so that we need to listen to our body.
Okay,
We've become so disconnected to our body that we're not listening to what it needs. And even when we start to move to natural health and we're adding in supplements and we're changing our diet, we're moving to a whole food diet, we need to listen when the body says, hey, this is not right for us. And we also need to listen when the body is presenting us with symptoms based on what our lifestyle looks like. So we need to honor that. And instead of just shutting off the symptom with a drug, because that's what drugs in a sense do, is they shut off a symptom. It's like putting a sticker over your car's check engine light and being like, oh, you've got this, you can keep handling this, right? So, and then your car breaks down. And that's what medications end up doing, is they're putting a sticker on the problem. They're putting a big happy smiley face on it. It's like when you watch the drug commercials and everybody's smiling and laughing and the happy music is playing while they read all of the negative side effects, like
itty bitty number.
Writing,
you can't
right?
even, you got to read them fast too.
Well, so that's where we need to really tune into. We don't want to put a happy sticker on it and pretend everything's okay and just keep going about this dysfunctional lifestyle. And if that's what somebody wants to do, great. We're all on our own path. I'm not judging one path or the other. But when you truly get to that place where you want to heal, that's when you recognize that putting those quick fixes on it, trying to turn off symptoms is not where we want to be. We really want to move into listening to our body and helping it rebuild, rebalance, repair, and we remove those stresses through listening.
And those are some important parts of that, because it says that you can learn how to use thoughts to create higher vibration and raise conscience levels. So explain the higher and lower vibrations that people might not be aware of, because that was something that really rose my levels. And now I'm kind of becoming aware of higher and lower vibration levels. That's kind of important.
Yeah, definitely. So whenever you're in anger, depression, resentment, hate, anxiety, you're in a lower vibration, and it's going to affect the body physiologically in that those emotions put the body into a state of breakdown. The body feels that it's under stress, and it is going to really start to break itself down to prepare for that stress, especially fear. Fear is a really big one. When you're in fear, you're in a state of breakdown because the body is not going to know the difference between, hey, look at that snake that's chasing me, or that tiger that's chasing me, or me visualizing my family and friends dying, or myself dying of a health issue. The body does not know the difference between the thought and a real event. So it's going to respond in the same way. So there is that physiological, scientific aspect of our thoughts affecting our body. And we know this if we're walking through the forest and we think that there's something coming after us, our blood pressure is going to go up, our heart rate's going to go up. We're going to be prepared to run. And then, it's just a little stick on the ground. So that is a response to a thought. And we're sitting here for the most part, thinking really stressful thoughts all day long. And we don't realize that the thoughts that we're thinking are putting us in this lower vibration state. And we need to shift it. We don't have to sit in joy and ecstasy all the time, but we do need to shift it at least to peace. We need to move the body to peace.
Do you ever get chills when you just say something so powerful? You just said something
sometimes,
so powerful.
Yeah, definitely. I actually was writing the welcome the welcome video to the course that I'm creating to train people to do what I do and become certified practitioners. And I finished talking and I broke down in tears. I was so inspired by what I said. And I'm like, wow, that came through me. That definitely was not me talking. And when you start to get into spirit, you start to connect to this dimension where we have access to all these ideas. And I was just like, wow, that was really, really inspiring. So yeah, sometimes it happens, but it's us learning to connect to that divine oneness. And when we can do that, wow, we can just really tune in.
And that kind of segues to these. I wrote these two statements down because for me they were powerful. They're kind of in the part of the body part before we go into a little bit of the phase 2 of what you are, the mind, body, spirit, or the mind. I put becoming educated. Healing requires us to take responsibility for all the choices we have made in our lives. And then blame is not responsibility. Blaming is giving away your power. I write those statements because, again, some of those low vibrations, high vibrations, they kind of go into what you talk about in the next part of the book. And there's a lot of parts of these exercises in that part. Kind of, we want to go into a little bit of that. We've talked a little bit of body. Let's talk about the second part, because some of these things is taking responsibility of the things in your book. It's actually asking us to take action.
Yeah, definitely. And with the 100% responsibility, you are going to hear every single spiritual teacher talk about it. If you are blaming or complaining or making excuses and you're not taking responsibility for what's happening in your life, and it's really recognizing that no matter what happens, you're responsible for how you respond to it.
Wow.
Right? So yes, stuff happens. And, through the laws of attraction, for people who believe in that, we recognize that we are attracting a lot of things to us. But it's more so just realizing that when things happen, we are responsible for the way we respond, and we can learn to change that at any time. And when we recognize that our power is in our response, then we are taking back our power, because we can learn new tools, we can raise our consciousness, and we can change the way we respond. And we all have the ability to create whatever we want to create.
That's right.
But it only happens when we take that power.
And when you take that power, it kind of goes into this little example that you give. What happens when you squeeze an orange, Sandie?
Orange juice is going to come out.
And so how does that example share with what you use in the book with that?
Yeah, so it's not the person doing the squeezing. The orange juice is going to come out, right? So we want to make sure that what's coming out of us is who we really are. Wow. So it's not my husband who might be triggering me. It's what's inside me coming out. So if anger is coming out, I have some things to work on. I've got to work on those triggers, because nobody really has the power to make us feel a certain way. There's, sometimes you can watch one thing happen to one person and the exact same thing happen to another person. They're going to have two different responses, and their tools, their knowledge, their skills, what is inside them is going to come out. So if when somebody squeezes you and anger and hate and resentment come out, it means that there's some things you got to do the work on.
Wow, so powerful. Because again, like I say, this is just some points from your book. Just what we're reading. It's another excerpt that I have. You can be confident in yourself and love who you are and still work on self-growth. How important is that?
Well, exactly. We can be confident. We can focus on our strengths, right? This is all about empowering ourselves and building our confidence, building our self-love. And so when we're focusing on that, we can find our confidence now and recognize that, yeah, there's definitely some triggers I need to work on. There's stuff that I need to address, but we're finding our confidence and our power as we're going through it.
That's so amazing. And we are talking with Sandie Gascon, author. And just let's talk a little bit of now differently. Let's get a little bit fun and get some more entertainment for those who'd like to get to know. But first, Sandie, where can people find you? Where can they find this information in your book?
Yeah, so you can actually get a free copy of my book, a free paperback copy at gethealyourself.com. You just have to pay for the shipping and the handling. You can also find it on Amazon and Audible. There is a audiobook there. You can download it on Kindle from Amazon, or if you wanted to purchase the paperback or the hardcover, they're also available on Amazon, but definitely can get a free paperback copy at gethealyourself.com. And all the information about me is on my website at www.sgintegrativehealing.com or www.motivatedtoheal.com.
So those are some wonderful places to go find Sandie's work. But let's also ask Sandie some questions. So writing this book, going through this, what was the process? What did you have writer's block at any time?
Well, I wouldn't say that I had writer's block, but I had fear block. So I started writing this in January. I'm like, wow, I have such an amazing program. I've got to share it with the world. So I sat down, I wrote about 30,000 words in 3 weeks. And I was only writing in the evening when my son was going to bed. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't release this. I'm not a doctor. Nobody's going to read this. And I'm like, I need to go be a doctor. And so I started really, and I actually share this story in my book where this fear hit me really hard. So for the month of February, I was looking at different programs, but every time I thought about going back to school, I wanted to vomit, like physically vomit, because I've done 7 years of post-secondary education, and it was not where my passion was. So I had to work on that fear of, and I didn't actually work on it. Honestly, what happened was God said, okay, I'll break this down for you really easy. And what happened was I got this idea for a meditation book in March, because I had just put the book on, it was on the back burner. It was going to happen another time. I was still thinking about maybe becoming a doctor. So it was just broken down for me. And the idea came to write the book on meditation. So I got it in a dream. 3 weeks later, part 3 was written. And I was like, yes, I can release this. And the editor was like, no, it's too short. I'm like, okay. So the idea came to me, and here's this being broken down really small and easy so that my fears would not take over. And what happened was I got the idea to put the mindset stuff in. So within a couple more months, the mindset section, part 2 and part 3 were written. And then I'm like, wow, this is still too short. Hey, I have 30,000 words that I wrote in January. Okay, I just wrote all this stuff about facing your fears and letting go of your limiting beliefs. I'm going to just go for it. And I put the entire book together. I created the appendix. And then I spent 7 months with editors and the publisher just getting everything ready. So it was really broken down for me because the fear was a little bit too much. And God said, you need to write this book. So let's break it down into small steps. I'll just trickle it to you as you can handle it. And then you can put it all together, because after you write for an entire year, you're not going to get stuck with the fear. And what I did was every day I wrote for an hour. I committed to writing for an hour, and I would sit and write, and the words would always flow, and then I would stop because I still, I have a young toddler, and I have my very successful coaching business. I have my clients to work with. I have my passions with my horses, riding, hiking, that sort of thing. So I still was able to do all that, but just take a little bit each day, do 1 hour a day, and the book was written. So then the editing was definitely a lot harder.
I bet you that was. It's no, I tell you what, I know I just don't even want to recall undergrad and grad work and writing and just being yelled at all the time. So I imagine the work that you had to go through. So would you consider the work that you did and everything? How has it helped you progress in your career and the things that you're learning now, especially with just the different ones who are coming to you? Because just a little bit I've read, it hits so much. There's so much powerful information. And as I go back and do a little bit more of this and get more in depth of it, how has it helped you as you've gone through this process and publishing your book now?
Well, definitely. Every time they always say, write a book that you want to read, because you're going to read it a lot. Yeah. And every time I read it, it would bring the concepts back to me. So these are all concepts that I've learned. I've read hundreds of books on mindset work and spiritual growth and self-growth. So I've literally read hundreds of books. I've taken all these programs, and it really starts to saturate your subconscious and through repetition. But if we don't keep repeating it, it's very easy for the world to get to us again. And we start to fall back onto our old thought patterns. So every time I read it, every time I listen to it, it just reiterates these concepts for me. And moving through it, like as I was writing through the book, I was still moving through life and having things happen to me. And the concepts that I was writing about were helping me and showing me that, wow, these concepts do work, because I use them every day to help me move through things that are happening in my life. And then going through the whole publishing process, that was definitely a lesson in patience. As always, a lot of patience to publish and edit a book. And then moving and getting it out there into the world was definitely when you set everything up, and as soon as you're ready to publish it, it's like, well, thankfully I cannot stop this, because then all the fears happen. It's like I'm laying everything about myself out there to the world, and you get hit with a lot of fears. But thankfully, I've sold a great many copies and have such amazing feedback for the book that I'm very grateful that I did face those fears and write it.
And we are so glad that you have been able to join us on the Native Broadcast Network radio station. Her name is Sandie Gascon. She's a functional nutrition practitioner and holistic health coach. Her website is, say the website again.
www.sgintegrativehealing.com or www.motivatedtoheal.com.
And she has a book that's out, and that book is titled
Heal Yourself, Body, Mind, Spirit. And you can get a free paperback copy at gethealyourself.com.
Awesome. We are happy to have you, Sandie, and we thank you, and we hope to look forward to have you again sometime in the future. And we congratulate you on your success. And thank you for joining us on the Native Broadcast Network.
Thank you for having me.
Have a wonderful day.
You too.
Thank you.